UN Syria envoy says that Syria could be spared its bloodiest battle yet if the Russian and Turkish presidents talk to each other urgently about resolving the situation in the rebel-held region of Idlib. The Mistura said that ongoing talks between Russia and Turkey held the key to averting an assault on the region, but 6 reported airstrikes on Tuesday suggested that Ankara talks were not going well. US Ambassador to United Nations Nikki Haley said that the UN Security Council will hold a meeting on Friday on the situation in Syria's Idlib province. Haley warned Syria's government not to use chemical weapons ahead of a widely expected military offensive there. Russian and Syrian planes pounded areas on the western edge of Idlib on Tuesday. A Syrian government minister also said that the siege of Idlib would probably be resolved by force. The UN mission in Libya said a ceasefire agreement has been to end a week of clashes in the capital, Tripoli. After another day of violent clashes in the capital's southern suburbs, the fighting came to a pause in the early evening, but it was unclear if all the groups involved would respect the agreement. Last week, a ceasefire deal announced by officials from western cities only held for a few hours. Hundreds of African migrants who fled the violence in Tripoli to farmland southwest of the capital will be relocated to a detention center. The migrants escaped from a detention center on Tuesday morning as fighting between rival groups raged nearby. Most of the migrants were jailed after the Libyan Coast Guard intercepted their makeshift boats around for Italy. US President Donald Trump will chair a United Nations Security Council meeting on Iran this month during the annual gathering of world leaders in New York. The United States holds the Council presidency for September and has unsuccessfully pushed the UN to call out Iran. A busy flyover collapsed in the eastern Indian city of Kolkata, killing at least one person and injuring several others. The Majarhat Bridge collapsed in South Kolkata. The bridge is one of the busiest in the city and collapsed over rail tracks. Arizona's governor named former U.S. Senator John Keel as the temporary successor to late Senator John McCain. Governor Ducey says Keel's appointment is not political, despite Keel working closely with the White House in recent months on getting Kavanaugh confirmed in the Senate, where Republicans hold a razor-thin one-vote majority. Waves began to batter parts of the U.S. Gulf Coast as the region felt the first effects of Tropical Storm Gordon, which is expected to become a hurricane before it comes ashore with high winds and heavy rain. The storm has also caused a jump in global oil prices after the evacuation of 2 oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. About 100 cars at a used car auction site caught fire in typhoon-ravaged western Japan. Footage shows fire and smoke coming from the parked cars at the auction site facing the coastline in Kobe. The cause of the fire has not yet been confirmed. The police investigating the fire are connecting it to the typhoon. Laboratory tests by the chemical weapons watchdog have confirmed British conclusions that 2 people in Amesbury in southwest England were exposed to Novichok-type nerve agent. 44-year-old Dawn Sturgis died after she and her partner were exposed to the toxin near the city of Salisbury, where Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were struck down with the same poison in March. The UK has accused Russia, which developed the toxic agent in the Soviet Union era, of poisoning the Skripals. Moscow has denied all involvement. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau indicated that Canada would not bend on key demands at talks this week with the United States to update the North American Free Trade Agreement. Officials for both sides are scheduled to meet in Washington on Wednesday in a bid to settle some major differences. Israelis staged a protest against Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte in Jerusalem as the Filipino leader met with his counterpart, WION Rivlin. Duterte is on a 4-day visit to Israel and Jerusalem. He thanked Rivlin and welcomed further defense deals with Israel that were on the president's trip's agenda, alongside tourism and labor deals. Palestinian protesters clashed with Israeli forces and burned Israeli and American flags at the Erez crossing in the Gaza Strip. The protest erupted following U.S. decision to cut funds for the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Britain's opposition Labour Party adopted an internationally accepted definition of anti-Semitism in a bid to defuse a row that has heaped pressure on its leader at a time when the government is struggling over Brexit. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, who is a veteran campaigner for Palestinian rights, has been criticised by members, lawmakers and Jewish leaders for not fully adopting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. 5 protesters have been killed and 16 more have been injured during a second night of clashes with security forces in Iraq's Basra. Hundreds of people gathered at local government buildings in the city and hurled petrol bombs and stones while attempting to block roads leading to the building. Some protesters stomped one of the provincial government buildings and set it alight. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has ordered an investigation into the death of a protester who died in clashes with security forces in the southern city of Basra. The protester Yasir Makki died in a hospital after attending demonstrations over government services and corruption. The local head of Iraq's Human Rights Commission, Mahdi al-Tamimi, had earlier called for an investigation into Makki's death. Provincial results show Rwanda's ruling party is set to win 3/4 of directly elected parliamentary seats in this week's poll, though the opposition Greens has won seats for the first time. Longtime ruler President Paul Kagame's Rwandan Patriotic Front and its 7 small allied parties had 74% of the votes after Monday's election, with most of the ballots counted, equating to 40 seats in parliament, a slight drop on 5 years earlier. Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who attended the 2018 Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. Xi expressed his appreciation and gratitude to Kagame for his attendance and his contribution to the success of the summit. Xi said the African people's profound friendship with China was evident as so many African leaders had come to attend the summit. A mudslide due to incessant rains in North Indian hill town of Shimla disrupted traffic movement in the mountains. Debris flowing along with the water blocked the key road, which caused an elaborate traffic on the Kalka-Shimla highway. The wives of 2 Reuters journalists in Myanmar jailed for 7 years on official secrets charges insisted the men are innocent and called for them to be released and reunited with their young families as soon as possible. A court found the 2 journalists guilty in a landmark case seen as a test of progress towards democracy in Myanmar, which was ruled by military junta until 2011. 90 elephant carcasses have been discovered in Botswana with their tusks hacked off. It is believed to be one of Africa's worst mass poaching sprees. Most of the animals killed were large bulls carrying heavy tusks. Elephants Without Borders said the grim discovery was made over several weeks during an aerial survey by scientists from Elephants Without Borders and Botswana's Department of Wildlife and National Parks. A pair of ruby slippers worth millions that were featured in the movie The Wizard of Oz and stolen from a Judy Garland museum 13 years ago have been recovered in Minneapolis by the FBI. The slippers, known as the traveling pair, were stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, during a smash and grab robbery in 2005 that took less than a minute and left behind only a single sequin. The slippers remained missing for the next 13 years despite an exhaustive investigation by local law enforcement. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, congratulated the winners of the Well Child Awards 2018, which honours seriously ill children and young people. The Duke and Duchess met with the winners at a pre-ceremony meeting at a London hotel. Prince Harry is a patron of the charity and will make a speech commending the courage of seriously ill children, their families and those who care for them.